I am now absolutely thrilled to welcome in a guest who I have been in contact with and enjoyed having on the podcast a number of times over the years. She is an author, a journalist, an incredible interviewer. Welcome back to the Gooners Podcast, Amy Lawrence. It's great to see you again.
Hey, everyone. Andrew.
Good afternoon. I almost said good morning, but good afternoon.
What are you doing to me? You want me to follow Arsblog? I mean, come on.
You know, I assume you guys are familiar. You have crossed paths. We are now at the $4,165 funds raised. We were really trying to get to 5,000 in this to beat our total from last year. You can go to www.goonersvcancer.com, enter to win some great prizes, help kick cancer. It all goes to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and we're really looking forward to helping smash that. So thank you, and Andrew, thank you again for everything that you've done to help promote the charity. To just be, despite your gritted teeth, to be a friend to us. To continue to help us, even despite me turning up everywhere in your life.
Yeah.
And
that'd be great.
I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Keep up the good work. Make sure you mainline those amphetamines to keep going for the rest of the show. Get you through the next 13 hours.
Yeah, I think we're under 10 now left. So, okay. So thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too, guys. See you later.
Later.
Bye. Bye-bye. So, Amy, how you been? Been a lot. It's been a while.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Does that sound better? I'm just using.
So much better. Yeah. Sometimes the more technology doesn't equal the. Yeah.
All rubbish. Yeah, really good. I'm slightly envious of you lot who look like you had an absolute blast on tour.
It was a fun time, I must say. Aston and I did have a beverage or two, and a laugh or two.
To say the least. I think listen, we were put to shame by Ray, let's be honest. That man can just go and he gets up, and the craziest thing is I watched him take 12 shots with 12 different people, and then he got up in the morning at 8 a.m. and was in the gym. Like built different.
Yeah, if we're comparing ourselves to Ray Parler, then come on, we're not gonna but I was up by at least 4 p.m. every day. And up until 5 a.m. But Amy, the last time we saw each other was at the Barbican, which I could say about most of my friends. We only see each other at the Barbican, but after a really, really unexpectedly, not unexpectedly for me, but just a really fun evening out, which tell the people that are watching who might not have known about this or been there what that evening was all about, because I can assure you it was not what my date for the evening, Lee Judges, thought it was going to be.
Well, it was a bit of a worlds colliding thing, because essentially it was a classical music concert, fused with football. And I apart from the obvious kind of Pavarotti Italianati phenomenon, it's not a normal crossover. Basically, an English composer called Mark Anthony Turnage, who's also happens to be a massive Arsenal supporter and lived in Highbury for a long time, was commissioned to write a piece based on 89, the story you and I know well, and hopefully many of others have come to learn to love. And he created this. He's a very contemporary style, which is maybe not kind of the classical music that most people will come across in their life, things like adverts or, memes or films and what have you. It's an unusual style. So for non sort of classical music experts, maybe a little bit trickier to penetrate, let's just say. And when they put together the idea for this show, they wanted to appeal to football fans, but also to sort of genuine sort of music lovers. So they added some regular pieces to the show. And the first half was just pure classical music. And some of the people there, I won't mention any names, kind of, I say halftime, the interval, were a little bit kind of like, this is different. And what am I doing here? Because I'd certainly never, been anywhere with a massive orchestra before. And then the second half was the premiere of 89, the composition. And Mark, I must say, I thought I'd not seen it or heard it, and it staggered me. The way that he had kind of come up with these motifs to go with either different figures, be it slightly comedy like Steve.
Oh, there were so many comedic elements to it, which I thought was great.
It was genuinely funny, as well as being very kind of vigorous and uplifting musically. And, that he'd set a kind of special cut of the game, about 25-minute highlights to music. And a few players and George Graham were there in the audience, which was also extra special.
Except for one guy who we'll talk about in a little bit.
Okay. But what was completely brilliant is when it got to the kind of goals and the finale, everybody was cheering in the Barbican, and it was like I'd never quite seen anything like that before. And it was my honor on the day to present a Q&A where we had George Graham, Alan Smith, Nigel Winterburn, Lee Dixon. Is that everybody?
Was Perry there? No, Perry wasn't there.
No, I think that was us.
Yeah, that was and the composer.
Yeah. And it was a fantastic night. I loved it. And just anything that keeps the kind of the glory of 89 alive is always good in my book.
I mean, Amy and I are kindred in our love of 89. You I think referred to us as like 89ers or something. Was that the because when you told me about this event, you're like, yeah, I know you're an 89er. You might like this. I was so thankful for you telling me about this, because I had just extended my trip for a week because of a misunderstanding of when my daughter's father's weekend was for her sorority. And in that week was both this event and the Arsene Wenger David Dean event. So, why not put a little bit more money down and get to see these two things? And so, yeah, the 89 thing, the things I remember from that, first, we're standing outside the Barbican when Lee Judges, my accompanient for the evening, who loves he loves the 89 team. But he thought it was a musical. Like a Broadway musical about the 89. Like I'm like, yeah, Nigel Winterburn's going to come out, I don't know why he thought that. And then he was literally ready to walk out during that first part. He's like, what does this have to do with football? And I think it's interesting to know that a lot of people didn't necessarily get the memo that there was going to be about a 20 to 30 minute orchestral piece, or however you refer to it, that had nothing to do with Arsenal, nothing to do with football, but was beautiful nonetheless. But people were like, when did the highlights start? But yeah, the comedic elements, like I think the moment where the goal was being reviewed, Alan Smith's goal was being reviewed, and he goes over to the side to talk to the linesman. I mean, I think that was a part that had some just kind of funny or musical interludes and stuff. But just the most unique thing, and just another way, just like your incredible 89 film, your incredible 89 book, Fever Pitch, just another packaging of the greatest night of my sporting life to be brought to the public. And I just I wish there were more opportunities. I wish that wasn't just a one night only kind of thing. I think it was broadcast as well, but just what a fun, interesting night that was. And then the interviews afterwards, unfortunately one drunk tosser in the back of the lower level screaming at George Graham for going to Tottenham almost ruined the entire thing. Like there were a few of us that were getting ready to physically address the guy's issues, but other than that, it was just one of these feel good rooms, wasn't it?
It was cool.
If I could ask something, by the way, while I have the legend Amy around me. First of all, shout out to 89. Not only does that involve Arsenal, not only does it involve my birth date, but it also involves I was born in 1989, but I'm also a classically trained bassoonist, so I love classical music.
Fantastic. Aston, I so wish you'd been there.
It sounds like it was a great night. I have to ask because, for so long, your work has actually been the closest thing to melding us with like what the goings on of the club are, kind of like the back room. Like you orbit so closely, and we kind of live vicariously through you. So you're like the perfect person to ask. You know, you've been there for all the times when Arsenal were winning, when we weren't winning. The culture changes over and over again. And right now we're in the midst of a cultural revolution. When I spoke to Josh, he actually said that when he was speaking with Mikel and Mertesacker, 80% of that conversation was about culture. How close is this culture to being that magic, like, right chemistry that's going to transmit to something on the field, or similar to maybe some other eras bygone?
First of all, can I just say, really pleased to meet you, Aston.
Nice
I know
to meet
Mike,
you.
but the other Mike and you, it's really good to see you. That's a really astute question. And, you know, we spend, I'm off, you know, we just spent how long? 10, 15 minutes yakking away about 89. Me and you, Mike, in our own little personal kind of.
I'm trying not to dominate the entire thing. So I'm glad Aston played.
But I'm very conscious that, you know, is exactly what you say, Aston. This is a living, growing organism. And I remember when I was a kid growing up and voraciously, you know, reading about the 30s and wanting to know people who were close to that era, you know, or who knew anybody who might have played in the 30s, and what was that like, and what were they like, or Herbert Chapman, all these kind of mythical things. And then 71, and you know, I was fortunate enough to get to know some of these guys in later life. But you know, you realize what Frank McClintock was as a captain, became a kind of standard bearer for the whole history of the club for what being a captain could be. And you know, someone like Charlie George being the local boy man. These are stories that are weaved through the history, these kind of marker points or people that create, I guess, what Arsene Wenger called the values of the club. And you know, when he left, I think the line that just stays with me all the time, which was direct from him to you, to the fans: take care of the values of this club. You know, that was really, really significant. And obviously there's a kind of sub message going on there from him to people who are running the club, because obviously they're the ones that make decisions. But he knows that as fans, taking care of the values of the club is a kind of global representation, but also as a means to holding the people in charge to account, because the fans are the only people really who can apply any kind of pressure or desire to the people who are taking the day-to-day decisions. One of the things I think that has been so interesting about this little period, I mean, when you look back and, you know, when you're living through change, it's sometimes quite difficult to analyze it too well, because you're right in the middle, and so much is kind of happening and you're just not quite sure which direction it's going to go. But with that hindsight, if we're allowed hindsight now for the year or two that followed, you know, last year of Wenger, Emery, first year of Arteta, it was such a chaotic, muddled period for the club. There was problems at every turn when you think about it. The balance within the team was a mess. You know, it needed so much untangling. Putting in a rookie manager was a remarkable decision under the circumstances. And, you know, having, you know, and there was just turmoil really inside the club internally with, you know, different decision makers in the hierarchy coming, going, you know, having to deal with the fact that Ivan Gazidis had left the club very, very bloated with, you know, with departments that were just full of people, some of whom didn't have anything to do on big wages. It was not running itself very well. Raul Sanyehi, I think most of us probably agree that was a dramatic pause. That was a difficult time.
I have to go take a shower now that you've just mentioned it.
Fondly. You know, and then Edu coming in and, you know, suddenly having this. I think it interests me that on and off the pitch, this kind of the feel of something dynamic going on is returning. You know, it's a bit early to say it's back, but when you look at the guys who are, you mentioned Josh, Aston, and whatever people think about the Cronkies, you've had the privilege of meeting him, talking to him. He's a smart guy. He's a young guy. He's got good. He might not get everything right, and his, the relationship between the Cronkies and the club has been a complicated one. But I think his heart's in the right place, and I think he gets stuff much more than people out there like to think sometimes.
I pointed out that he was incredibly aware of a lot of the criticisms that are being made of him. I think one of the things that impressed me so much with actually talking to him, because I was very staunch Kroenke out, was the fact that he was able to so eloquently articulate, like very honestly, that we weren't fans of the things that he was doing. He said, like, there were peaks and valleys to your appreciation for me, and I thought that, and it all just kind of rang kind of really honest in a way that I don't think people really expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. But I think when you have this imaginary room or round table or sofas or whatever in an office of Josh, Mikel, Edu, Perma, Saka to an extent, being kind of key decision makers in the club and in its direction, and them having to collaborate and be on the same page, really. And the evidence of that collaboration is in the way the squad is being changed and the decisions they've made, some of which seemed brave and unpopular. I mean, you rewind to Aubameyang being stripped of the captaincy, and I mean, I still struggle a bit with that one in some ways because I didn't really like it, the way it panned out.
Yeah.
But you begin to understand it when you see what's happening. And that's not to kind of automatically put Aubameyang in a box marked, big problem. But obviously things weren't right in the balance. And, to an extent that was predated with the same thing happening with Mesut. But you look at the squad now, and I remember I was very fortunate to go and spend some time at the training ground last season where I did an interview with Mikel, and they were kind enough to sort of show me around and some of the things that they've changed inside the building. And it's really rare to do that. I haven't done anything like that for a really long time because, quite apart from COVID, as a rule, they obviously don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry going into the building and seeing what's going on and being around, around the players all that often, which is fair. But one of the guys who have been there for a really long time, going back to the best of the Invincibles and, and beforehand, who's seen it all, kind of had that look on his face where he's like, there's something happening here. Like, this is different.
Really?
And yep. And he was like, this is the best that the spirit inside the building has been for a decade.
And this was
I really
that warms my heart.
People don't say things like that for a laugh. He
No,
meant
not at all.
It wasn't for a fact. It was like him sharing his enthusiasm and excitement from what he's been able to see over 20 odd years or so inside the building, good times and bad. And like, it gives you that, it gives you, it makes hope feel more tangible, like it's something you can touch rather than just something you can dream about.
I love that.
This leads into a question that I had written down because I wanted to ask you, because of the perspective you have of this is the dawning, perhaps, let's hope, of, in my lifetime of following the Arsenal, a third era.
Mm-hmm.
The George Graham era, the Arsene Wenger era, the Mikel Arteta era, let's hope. Because it won't be an era if it doesn't turn out well, and then we're just not talking about it. I've looked at Arteta and said the way he is ruthlessly building this team, clearing out and starting anew, that's George Graham. But then I also see the way he's trying to kind of evolve the club and how it's run and how the relationship are and how the non-negotiables. There's a little bit of and certainly the way he speaks with the media. That's Arsene Wenger. So, is the Arteta era that's evolving, is he more Wenger? Is he more Graham? Or is he potentially the perfect combination of the two? Not to lionize him too much, but like,
yeah, that's quite a.
I mean, He could end up being Unai Emery Mach 2 if things don't work out. But like his style, I'm saying, not the success and achievements.
I was gonna say he's past that at this point. No, he can't fall in the Unai category.
I don't know. For some he could, but stylistically, more Wenger, more Graham, or his own guy.
Well, I think when he first came in, and I think it was a combination of the fact that he has this ruthlessness about him and the kind of my way or the highway vibe, reminded me very quickly of George. And also the dressing room he walked into was not dissimilar in that, back in the mid 80s, there were a lot of what George maybe used to describe as sort of like prima donnas or people who were too comfortable or were just, not performing. He used to say, people think I don't like stars. That's not right. I like performing stars. He was very,
with the perfect Scottish accent too.
It was a terrible Scottish accent. I apologize to everybody in Scotland.
That's all right. We used to do a game on our podcast where I would make up one Arsene Wenger phrase and try to do it in his accent, and it was just an absolute awful joke that Andy almost killed me over. So,
I'll try my arse then later, but but I definitely recognised, the kind of George-esque. George, when he came in, said, "Right, sat the team down and said, you've got 6 weeks. I'm going to judge you all. Everyone's got a fair crack of the whip, but you got 6 weeks." And he made it really clear. And within a year or so, a lot of favourites. Sorry, Rocky saying hi. A lot of favourites were shipped out, and he started to very specifically strategize the kind of players he wanted, who were young, hungry, often coming. Often it was a step up. So when you compare the kind of Bowles and Winterburns and Lee Dixons and so on. Exactly.
Don't worry, we want to hear from Rob.
It's a bit like a Tomiyasu or a Ben White or those guys or Ramsdale. It's obvious that joining Arsenal is a step up. Lee Dixon, who as well, Mike. I think you've spoken to him before. Tells us about how he walked into
this Pod-A-Thon.
Right, and on the first day, quaked in his boots and felt sick to his stomach and looked at the players around him. That if you find the right guys who, what has prevented them from getting that to those levels before is opportunity. Perfect, because they come with you and they're moldable. And that's what Mikel, to an extent, has done. I mean, obviously someone like Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, that doesn't apply. And that's the beauty of being able to buy those types of players in the same way that eventually George Graham could buy an Ian Wright. Is that you get to a level where you can handpick, okay, this guy's going to make us better, but he's done. He's cooked. But with the others, it's about, anyway. But I mean, clearly in terms of, and he's gone off to find a squirrel or something. In terms of style, I agree with you, although I will always defend George, and they weren't quite as boring as people would like to say, but it was a different era.
I wasn't bored.
And is this team going to be as good as beautiful on the eye as a Wenger team at its best? It's still a little early to say. I sometimes still feel that what I loved about the Wenger teams was the speed. It was full speed.
It's
brilliant.
Insane.
Front to back in a heartbeat. You watch the best goals, and it happened in a flash. And
Wenger ball.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think that there's that kind of patient, probing style, which Arteta uses more, which is more influenced obviously by Guardiola, that isn't quite so dynamic. So I'm waiting to see what happens there. Now he's got better tools at his disposal, because I think one thing Gabriel Jesus does is make everybody quicker, not just himself.
Everybody better, everybody quicker.
So I got a question. Sorry, yes, I got a question that just slightly changes a little bit back to the film industry that you just did. I want to say thank you for 89. It was just absolutely insane. And for a younger fan to get to see all the in-depth that went down that season is just absolutely amazing. But I was curious, is there any other league / period or maybe a biopic that you would be interested in going through that process of filming?
The Unai Emery story.
Yes, the rise and fall of Unai Emery.
Oh, hold on. I have to play it, Amy. I feel bad almost about playing this, but
Oh no!
But I have to because we're talking about the man himself right here. But hold on, where is it? Where's my
Bettner biopic? That's what I need.
That's what would be the most wild biopic? I mean, Bettner has to be up there, right?
Actually, it would be a great story, and but the one that I've actually tried on occasion, but again, it's linkage with 89. I think Tony Adams's story on a personal level as well as on a sporting level is something that stands the test of time in terms of an incredible human story, and he's a
story of sorts,
fascinating guy. So that would be one in terms of a kind of individual biopic. Ian Wright as well is, I think in a way, because Ian Wright sort of just about straddled that George Graham and Wenger era, but as a character, what he did and what he achieved in that time, in terms of, I've never seen a player have a relationship with fans like him. And I think that
I've seen one other player who has a relationship with the fans like him, and he happens to be one of Ian's very good friends. But
Mike, you're the one that's
super Kev.
There was a YouTube video that you recommended me. It was about Ian Wright and Rocastle. And
Rocky and Righty.
Because so Amy, I have a habit of naming my children after football figures, and it's kind of been a thing. But yeah, my son, his name is Michael Thomas, and my other son is named Ian David after the two. And then we were having that conversation, and Mikey recommended that to me because I just kind of you grow up knowing and hearing about the legends that they were, but because I never had the opportunity of actually experiencing it, I like to deep dive. So that's why I like films like 89, films like The Invincibles. Like I truly appreciate them because I always like peeking behind the curtains, especially things that go down in the locker room. Like I just absolutely love that regarding sports.
Are you guys looking forward to the Amazon doc?
Yeah, very much so. It's very cool to see kind of the behind the scenes. I wanted to say on that Ian Wright biopic, what I really appreciate is Gunner Blog is actually doing this. He's actually doing a piece on the Black history of Arsenal, and a lot of the times that era gets overlooked. That's the era that got people that look like me to be huge fans of Arsenal because of the way that we carried the culture, the inclusivity that we had with everyone. And I think that sometimes that gets overlooked. If you listen to Ian and Kevin talk, they actually talk about this a lot. Like they mention, this is why we went out this way. We knew that when we were out, we had to behave a certain way. And I find that stuff fascinating. So that's exactly why I would love a whole era of the stuff from their perspective from that period of time. I think that's really cool. And I really want to big up Arsenal because I think that it's our culture, our values that kind of lead to these sorts of stories that kind of we always come off kind of like the good guys and in these places. And I think there's a reason why,
Stebby has just asked Mike Hernandez if his next kid's going to be named Zidane Feinberg Hernandez.
Very nice.
Well, that wasn't a straight no then, Mike. So, there's a possibility.
That was a straight no. It's not so much no to the name. It's just no, I've exhausted. How many children do I have now, Mike?
46 kids.
46 kids. So I can't possibly do it anymore, Amy. So I'm really sorry, Seb.
That's been really taxing on you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Sebby. I'm really sorry, Sebby. Zidane. There won't be a Zidane Hernandez, unfortunately.
There was a period where the name La Nesra was popular. Somebody got their daughter called La Nesra, which was Arsenal backwards because they weren't allowed any other Arsenal-related names. Anyway, no, Aston, I think you make a really good point, and it's actually something that made a huge impression on me when I was a kid growing up, watching Arsenal, because you're at that age where you're kind of figuring out about the world and values and your place in it and all that stuff. And while my experience was obviously nothing remotely like black players or black fans, football in the 80s wasn't hugely welcoming towards women either. So you had to kind of fight your corner to be accepted, albeit, I never felt sort of threatened in the same way that perhaps my other situations would be. So I'm not putting myself in anyone else's shoes at all. But it was something I was very aware of, because particularly when Arsenal had the midfield of Davis, Thomas and Rocastle, which was around that late 80s period, it was quite unusual to have, a whole sector of your team that was dominated by black players in English football at the time. And I will always remember going to Goodison Park in 1989 in that season. It might have been 88. I can't remember if it was the December or January, for an away game. Arsenal won 3-1. And I was in the upper tier. Behind the goal, there was like a terrace underneath, and then you'd have seats, kind of old wooden seats up in the upper tier, which you could bang to like boom, boom, like everyone would bang together and it would make a right old racket. And it's a difficult story to tell, but it's a truth. So, in the second half of the game, what felt like the whole crowd of the three sides of Everton supporters started singing a song that I wouldn't repeat, that didn't leave anything to the imagination, that was very, very deeply racist. And we, although the majority of the crowd for Arsenal were white, it wasn't exclusively white. It was much more mixed than virtually anywhere you would find in English football at that time, because it represented cosmopolitan London. And the part of London that we're in, we had communities, all around in these neighborhoods where there was recently, big communities coming in from particularly Cyprus, Ireland, the Caribbean, and people would gravitate much more to Arsenal than anywhere else, because that was definitely the safest place to be if you like football, and it was the most welcoming. And the Arsenal fans behind the goal, just everybody got up and this kind of resistance, this protection of our players, this kind of assault on our players who we loved started, and we defended them with everything that we had. And it was a really, really powerful thing. And it was probably the first time I ever kind of, I suppose, got a semblance of an understanding as to how impossibly difficult it must be. And then I remember going, and without putting too fine a point on it, the song involved shooting. And I remember hanging around afterwards, because I was a bit of a groupie in, trying to get an autograph or something, like where the players would come out. And in those days, again, it was not like today. There wasn't many people around. It wasn't like there was security. You just be there. Nobody really cared. Dave Rocastle came out, and one of the Everton supporters who was loitering around said, "Hey, Rocky, why don't you come and sign for a big club?" or something like that. And Dave Rocastle just looked him straight in the eye and went, "What, and get shot?"
Wow.
Well played, Rocky.
And that's
incredible.
A story I can tell you that I saw with my own eyes and I heard with my own ears. That is not a second-hand story. That is a true story.
Amy, you are a gift. You are a gift. I could sit down and listen to stories about Arsenal from you all day. Like you
That's
have
when I got
no
loads of
idea.
time, man. Come over, we'll go out for a drink.
Storyteller. Holy
Tell us when you're coming
Seriously,
over. It's on me.
I keep going back to this, but I can't stress it enough. And this is what's the most honorable, incredible thing about the panels that we've put together in this podcast through just the relationships that we have is, I mean, we are literally and Ray, I think, can identify with that story, and you're putting tears in people's eyes. And this is I made a I repeat myself a lot during these because I don't know who's been watching when, and we're 18 hours into the podcast now that we've hit 8 a.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. UK time. But my family, as a Jewish family, I think it's been at least 8 hours since I've told this, so I can go again. Our big holiday is Passover.
That was yesterday, Mike. You're good.
our big holiday is Passover, and in my family, my mother's side of the family, New York, Queens, and Brooklyn Seders, and the old generation then passing it along to my mom's generation, who then pass it on to us, and now my daughter at 21 is the future matriarch of our family when it comes to like the observance, and the traditions go from generation to generation. There's even a word in Hebrew for that called lador vador, generation to generation, and it's just the you would never think that you would find that sense of family and tradition and continuity in football or sport at all. It's not the same to have, I'm not talking about going to a Philadelphia Eagles game with your grandfather, or watching a golf tournament with your uncle. I'm talking about literally like almost scripture and passing it through generation to generation of Arsenal fan. It doesn't have to be like generations, fathers, sons, daughters, mothers. It could be generation like Mike to Mikey, like of when you started watching Arsenal, passing this along. Someone who's who was born in 1989, like Aston, relative to someone who lived through 1989, like myself, but both feeling like we lived through it. It's invaluable, and I want to ask you. I want to ask you.
Well played, Eoin.
I want to ask you about somebody, and unfortunately, it's going to be a bit sad, but I want to ask you about Maria Petri, because when you talk about the matriarchs of a fan base, or the people who kind of are looked up to as the elders or the examples, and will someone take their place, or will these traditions die out? We cannot let these things die out when the human forms expire. We can't let these things that have to do with Arsenal. And I mean, these are conversations that 90% of podcasts wouldn't have, because they're just all about transfers and winning, and that's fine. This is what's important to me. Culture. And I was so pleased that Mikel Arteta knew instantly, and you could see the acknowledgement in his eyes about Maria, and had some nice things to say about her, but which we can play again. But Amy, your views and familiarity with Maria and what she meant to this football club?
Well, Maria, I mean, when you go to games, there are certain people who are just around. It's one of the things I love most about going to football, and one of the things I think that drew me in as a kid was that sort of I'm fascinated by the crowd, particularly when you have season tickets and people are kind of in the same place over a period of time. And, every week for 9 months of the year or whatever it is, there's the same people that might walk past your seat on the way to their seat, or, that you shake hands. You start off, it's a familiar face. Then you start saying hi to them. Then you start, arguing or debating about the team at half time. And you share profound emotional experiences with these people. You hug them. You're just having the most high and low moments of your life with people that sometimes you don't even know their name. It's kind of mad, but they feel like very dear to you and very connected to you and very close to you. We were lucky enough when we moved stadiums. I mean, I had a season ticket in the Clock End for a few years previous to that. And we had a great group. It was about 30. It kind of was almost a rectangle, a few rows and a few along, about as far in its direction that you could connect with people. And a lot of us moved over to a similar part of the ground to try and keep that going. And it's just part of the experience, is feeling part of something bigger than yourself. And, someone like Maria, she was just always around. I just bumped into her loads. I wouldn't say we were best friends. We didn't have kind of conversations about the meaning of life, but for years and years I would certainly hear her, because you couldn't miss that voice.
No,
and I
on TV
from someone the other day who said that they had a seat very close to Maria in the stadium for years, and really identified with that feeling that I loved the way she would pick a quiet moment. Even when there's 60,000 people in the stadium,
her timing was
really be able to hear one voice. She was an absolute mistress of it. She was the Don. There would just be the crackle of the crowd, and then suddenly there'd be a loud, come on, yeah, as soon as she starts, that voice, the piercing voice, everybody knows it. And I think everyone around her used to go, hey, kind of like cheer in support of her support. And it was kind of a beautiful thing. I mean, but over time, the beauty of when essentially she was a great character. That's why she had this kind of notoriety, not only because of her extreme fandom where she went everywhere and obviously very close to the women's team and always being around, and she was so kind, there was never a chance of her being negative. So I think that enabled the club to trust her, if you like, to turn up to things where maybe they don't normally have fans around. It's like, it's Maria, she's kind of part of the family. She was kind of like a crazy old aunt, if you know what I mean, in the nicest possible way. And but there are other characters around, and others will come through. It's the nature of the evolution. The club stays, the values stay.
It has to be that way.
And
my fear is that it won't be, and my fears are being allayed a little bit by some of the signs I'm seeing in the fan base. But it's and Kev's joining us now, saying, "Oh, Maria's an Arsenal legend, hands down." It's there's no one that doesn't, and I count myself among the people who probably know the least about her, but am surrounded by people who were massively impacted by her.
Yeah, but my point is, it's people like you, Mike, and people like you, Aston, who are picking up the baton. Your characters known for your love of the club, and that means something.
Well, it kind of echoes something that I've been saying along the whole trip, which is like everybody's all surprised by this U.S. fanatical support. They're like, the supporters are so great, the supporters are so big. But the reality is we're just building off of values that were started in North London. Hearing Maria in games is something that we cheer about when we are physically watching them in pubs. I think a lot of these traditions, I cannot say, like, that's exactly why I find people like you, Amy, and Sophie and Mike and all the people that have all the stories and all this history for this club. You asked me 10 years ago, like, what the hell does Arsenal mean to me? Ask me when I started watching, what does it mean to me? I thought it was, a bunch of pretty players that transmitted, like Wenger used to say, transmit something more when you get 11 men on song, blah, 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 football is poetry. But the older I get and the more involved, and I thank Mike, by the way, for bringing me into this community, you do start to pick up the history and these little traditions and these little stories. You start seeing familiar faces like Ziegler, if you're watching. Seeing you every time we have a gathering is something that I look forward to now. And it's something that when we say, and I know this sounds cheesy, I know I sound like a cornball, but when we say more than a club, more than football, this is when we say class is permanent. These are the things that we're talking about. And it is us connecting through time and space, these values and traditions that creates that class. You know what I mean?
Big time. Look, it's like, if you can imagine your life without football, like for a moment, just imagine that you're not interested. Think about the richness that you have in your life, the things that you look forward to, the experiences you have, just the people that you've met, the vibes and the things that have happened to you and that made you feel stuff just because you chose to be into football, and Arsenal ended up being the club for you. It's kind of mad.
I mean, to put it this way, and I'll say this: never in my world did I think that I would be standing up as a civil rights leader wearing an Arsenal jersey, because that's what makes me feel safe. But it's the values of this club and the community that you and Mike and all the backs, Kevin, I see you in the chat as well, have create that feeling of safety, of camaraderie, and a family that I never knew would be possible through something like football. I mean, I don't mean to belittle football itself, but you understand what I'm saying. It's just something more. And I think that the people that don't have this experience with them, that don't follow the sport as closely, that don't have that connection, are really missing out, because it's something wonderful.
I do. I feel in times when Arsenal struggle and you hear the echo chamber of podcasts out there and talk media, radio, and I sometimes go off on people for not just having perspective, and I can't expect everyone to have the life perspective that I have. You lose a family member, you have little kids, that this is just, you can't tell people who home and away this is their life to just take a chill pill when they're upset about something. But all I could do is just ask them to realize what Arsenal's all about. I mean, there's so much more to kind of lean back on when the club is disappointing us on the pitch. There's so much more involved to lean back on and cherish and bask in, I suppose. And that's what gets me through the tougher times on the pitch. And then imagine it all coming together. And Mikey, you might not have this yet, and Aston, you may not have this yet, and I haven't had it in 35 years because I missed all the glory days while I was off having kids and going to university and not having access to the games. Imagine when it all comes together and we start winning major trophies again and having the family. It's like
you mean next year?
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
talking about when we win the sextuple this season. It's going to be amazing.
Get in, Mike. Get in there.
It's all about the Florida Cup, baby.
It is.
Yeah.
We're halfway there. We got Baltimore, Florida, Emirates. All we have to do now is League Cup, FA Cup, and can we enter the Juan Gamper? Is that the thing that Barcelona always wins?
Oh, now I know what the heck you were.
Yes, I wasn't talking about some old guy. I'm 20 minutes overdue with this, but that's because of where we've been with this conversation. I did not want to interrupt it. Mikey, you've got to go. You've possibly been up longer than I have right now.
Yeah. What is sleep?
What is sleep? Mikey, I love you. Thank you for staying up. And you'll be back with us for what? Just the final hour at this point?
Yeah, that's 10 UK, right?
10 UK time. That's 2 p.m. your time.
Yeah,
get some sleep.
Thanks
for joining us. And
yes, Mikey. Lovely to talk to
you. Amy, absolute pleasure being able to talk to you. You are a storyteller and a half, and I truly appreciate everything you do. Aston, you are an awesome dude. I have time to chat with you all the time, so I am sure I will talk to you again. Regards to your football being so epic, I will say that I picked up on football on probably one of the more harder periods of my life as a kid. I was 9. And I was moved to a different country where I did not know the language. And football was the obsession and the glue that helped me integrate to the country. So embrace the tribalism, as I always like to say when it comes to football. So, yeah.
Love it.
Mikey, love you, and I will see you in a few hours. Keep up the good work, dude. What you are doing is absolutely freaking amazing.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
you.
And when I fell in love with football, I was 15. I was moved to another country where I didn't speak the language. So
I just really quick, one last thing I wanted to say, and I don't mean to gas you up all over the place, Amy, but I do have to say, to what you were talking about, the culture, I promise you, it was one day I was sitting there and I had read literally everything I could read about a game. This is like in 2010, 2011, somewhere around that time. And it was one of your pieces that started gave me the itch, because when you start talking, you would talk beyond the game and you would start talking about these little intricacies, these little, like you would talk about the history of Wenger and his eccentricities, or that he does this. And it was so very interesting. So when we talk about passing the values down on the club, I cannot understate how valuable the stuff that you've done over the years is. Incredible work.
Man, thank you. I don't know what to say. That's so nice.
Amy, I hope this resonates with you. Is Aston approaching Joey Murphy territory now, where he's about to foist a scarf on you and not give up until? I mean, the first time I met Amy was in the Duomo Square of Milan. I mean, this is the most romantic thing ever. And Joey Murphy was with me, who A, was very drunk, as per Joey Murphy, and B, truly to that point was way more of a researched and reader and consumer of Amy Lawrence's pieces, and was so starstruck that he just could not stop foisting his Denver Gooners scarf onto her in what was a pretty warm day, if I remember correctly. Warm, sunny day, not a scarf kind of day necessarily.
It wasn't a scarf day. You're right.
But he was not going to give up until you took that scarf, which ultimately I don't think you did.
Yeah, it was like some kind of rite of passage. I think he felt the kind of handing over of the Denver Arsenal scarf was big for him. But
It was.
I don't remember him saying a lot. I think he was virtually incapable of speaking much.
And that was 6 hours
before
most
of the talking, Mike.
That was 6 hours before kickoff. I think he had just purchased like 94 bracelets from the people walking around the Duomo Square, which is not a good idea. It's not what you want. All right, so we have a prize giveaway that is 20 minutes overdue. It is the 8 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. UK time prize giveaway, which is one of the big ones. We saved one of the big ones. Well, they're all big ones, but we saved the Legends Choice retro shirt. So this is the same prize we gave away as a grand prize in Orlando and a grand prize in Baltimore for anyone that has donated starting yesterday morning to now. And our grand total for that period of time right now is at $4,340, on its way to breaking last year's record of 5,000, which we hope to get to. Everyone that's donated is in the last, what do we have? 3, 6, 9, 11 prize draws left, and they're all great. But this is a signed retro shirt from the Arsenal Direct Shop, signed by your choice of Kevin Campbell, Lee Dixon. I almost said Lee Judges. I suppose if you want Lee Judges to sign it, then fine. But Lee Dixon, Kevin Campbell, Alan Smith, or Perry Groves. And they will sign with a personalized message to you, and you get to choose your legend. So the winner, let's share the screen here. The winner of the signed shirt is going to be, and again, if you've won a shirt already, you're not eligible for this one, but you will be eligible for the grand prize. If you've won a Ruth Beck art print, you are eligible for the shirt. And the winner of the shirt, Kushal Ashar, who just in the past 20 minutes donated, and it's immediately come in for him. He cleans up. He won he was the guy that won like 3 out of the first 4 things last year. But you know what? You're generous. You donate a lot of money. You win cool stuff. That's how Gooners versus Cancer works. So, Kushal, congratulations! You've won yourself a legend signed shirt. I think I'm assisting in making your wall something special right now. But that's great for Kushal. And, again, it's just always been my view that if you're going to donate money to something, let's make it so that you have an incentive. Everyone that donates says, you know what, I don't need anything, but I sure love to have the chance. But yeah, I'm excited to give this stuff away. I don't love fulfilling them because there's a lot of mailing and stuff, but we'll worry about that in November.
Also, real quick, for all of you guys out there watching, I don't know if you heard, Mike said we're almost about to break the record from last year. Don't go make my whole story about class and how gargantuan we are mean nothing. Come back. If you're watching this right now, donate, be part of the fabric that is our club, be part of the thing that we are. Please participate, because I think it's an amazing thing here that Mike's doing, and you get to be a part of it. You get to be a part of that specialness that is Arsenal. So there's still time. Get those donations in.
Oh, we've got what, 9? What did I say? Now we've got 10 more draws to do, and there's 3 Ruth Beck art prints. There's 2 new Arsenal kits of your choice, non-personalized, 2 new personalized kits of your choice, a Perry Grove signed shirt, an Alan Smith signed shirt, and a Saka ESR and Tomi Yasu signed shirt. So we really kind of put a lot of the heavy hitters in the back so that we had time for people to do it. So well done, Kushal. Congratulations. And Amy, in the few minutes we have remaining, and our next guest is one that I'm very excited. We've been waiting and waiting since season 1 to have this gentleman on. someone you may know named Danny Carbassian, is going to be joining us from Portugal. There's a ton of people coming through Portugal, either on vacation or on their way from various places. But any kind of way to cap off what we've talked about? I mean, what is your vision for this club over the next 5 seasons, on or off the pitch, or both, whichever you prefer? I mean, do you kind of have a prediction? I guess not punditry kind of prediction, but more of the Amy Lawrence kind of, like, where is this club headed?
Wow, that's a good question. Look, I think you hinted at it before when you talked about the kind of the 3 eras that you've lived through, the Graham era, the Wenger era, and hoping that the Arteta era kind of bears fruit. I mean, he's got to work miracles, really, to be delivering trophies on the kind of level that those 2 guys did. I mean,
just because the game has changed.
George Graham this is it. George Graham picked up 6 trophies in 8 seasons, and Arsene, had 3 doubles and what records of FA Cups and you name it in his time. So, but I think it's harder than ever to win. I mean, when you look at some of the points totals that Liverpool have got and not won the league, it's mind-boggling. It's incomprehensible. So, winning as a goal is the dream, but I think if you get too fixated with it, you're not going to enjoy the ride, just because of how difficult it is. And obviously, if I had one wish that Arsenal could do before I leave this earth, I mean, it would be winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
Something that I never got to see. I was so fortunate to see so much, and as you mentioned before to the other guys, the younger guys, they haven't lived through an era of being up there to win trophies on a regular basis. And it's an incredibly joyous thing when your team is that good and it and everybody else knows it and you relish it, but I hope that in these next years, there can be a continual growth, and that growth is an emotional growth where the bonds get tighter. I'm so glad that we're not sitting here with a club that feels fractured, and a fan base and even people within the club that bicker, and this feeling of people pulling in the same direction, and unity, to use Mikel's favorite word, unity to try and strive, to get to the places that everyone wants to get. It feels great. I'd love to enjoy that. I think getting back into the Champions League will be phenomenal for the next 5 years. I think that's pretty imperative. But again, you can't take it as a right. It's not something that you're going to do every year. And the moment Liverpool and Man City are doing it, but we did it for 20 years, and Man United did it for a period of time. I don't think there's any club that can say we're going to be in the Champions League forever. It just doesn't work like that. It's all cycles. We just want to cycle. We can live through every moment. You want to have some of those moments, that the ones that stay in your memory forever. I hope that in the next, whatever they end up being, I hope that, the younger members of the fan base can have some of those moments that they can carry through their life in their heart and then pass on to the next generations.
That's incredible.
Perfectly put.
Just before I zip off and we move on to Danny, I'd just like to personally thank you guys. What you're doing is an inspiration to the rest of us as well. I feel really deeply proud that, the club that when, I started to support it, in the 70s was really a local thing. It wasn't an international thing. It was, the way that it has bloomed and blossomed, and the love that, and the genuine kind of passion and knowledge that spreads the tentacles all over the world. And to know that there's people who feel like I felt when I was a kid in America or Nigeria or Vietnam or whatever is just deeply special. And I think the spreading of those connections and how real it is, and obviously that's just possible because of the age we're living in with, the way the world works. There's a magic there. And I'm grateful for what you guys do, kind of holding the torch in different parts of the globe with such kind of eloquence and class.
Well, the more people and the more people with the kind of perspective and eloquence that you have that are saying this about, and Aston, you're included in that. I'm running this podcast, but you're an ambassador as well in this situation. And, I'm starting to actually believe that there's importance to it and it's driving me further into saying, my mission, the whole being media thing, in 2019 was something that Andy came up with on a lark we thought would be funny, and then we ended up getting sucked into an interview with Josh Kroenke, and it has devolved into something where I actually take it quite seriously now, because I'm the only one that asked about Maria. I'm the only one that asked, hey, what did the fans reception? I want to bridge the club together with fans. That's my mission, and I'm glad to hear what you said. It's amazing. It's humbling, and it's something that I really, really look forward to continuing, because it means everything to me. I try to pass as much of my personal stuff along to my kids that I possibly can, the good personal stuff. And you can only pass so much Arsenal stuff down to your kids before you start finding other people to try to do it too. So,
it's interesting that you say that we are, good ambassadors for the club, because I'll tell you, like, in a moment, in a lot of those interviews, especially the one where I'm saying, top 4 minimum, the one that gets quoted everywhere, I honestly, in those moments, am channeling what I think the fan base wants. And I think that is something special, right? This emergent property of the fact that, let's face it, Arsenal has more fans than some countries have people, right? And to really grapple with the enormity of what that means, how many, we have enough fans that we could form a government, do trade, wage war. That's how many people are following it. And it makes it even more important that we, like you say, transmit those values that, again, were built in North London. It's a little like, after being so poignant and so, meta about everything that we're saying, it's kind of silly to say, but, we never got your predictions.
Oh, that's true. We need,
I thought I'd escaped. Oh, man.
top 4, bottom 3.
Oh man, are you serious?
I'll give you a pass if you want.
You don't need that from me. Come on, you can ask the others about that stuff.
You know what? It almost
the wishy-washy emotional stuff.
And Aston's right. We've really been very gushy. I don't want to dilute that. So you are the one person I'm letting off the hook with this, because I feel like it would undermine the beauty of our discussion. And it has been a beautiful hour. Amy Lawrence, thank you so much. Really quick crossover in case you want to say hi. Amy, Danny, Amy.
How are you, Danny?
I'm sure I'm not introducing you for the first time. I wouldn't presume that, but Amy's been a pleasurable hour, and I'm looking forward to the next hour as well with Danny. And any last word to anybody in the audience? What are your next projects? What are you up to, Amy?
Jesus, the season starts on Friday, and I'm a bit, just preparing. It's 3 days away, guys. Now, major projects wise, just keeping it low key for the moment. Just doing family stuff and personal family and Arsenal family. That keeps me busy enough for now.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for being a family member to us.
Go break that record, guys, and everyone out there, support if you can, donate, help out, be part of this big Planet Arsenal change for good.
Beautiful. Thank you, Amy.
See you guys.
Cheers.